What's up, everyone? We're back. We're doing another game recap. Today, we're going to be looking over the games from Sunday, October 1st. And the first game we're going to look at is the Jags and the Falcons. This was the London game. 23-7, the Jags won this one. Desmond Ridder was 19-31 for 191 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. He does not look good at all. It should just be a matter of time before Taylor Heinicke comes in. Bijan Robinson, on the other hand, looked fantastic. 14 carries, 105 yards, 7.5 yards per carry. Again, all common sense says that Bijan Robinson should get the ball more from here, but it's an Arthur Smith team. Tyler Allgeier just had the 7 carries for 16 yards. Back-to-back games, 7 points here. Not good stuff from the Falcons offense, and this is what an Arthur Smith offense looks like. Jonnu Smith, way out in front of everybody else. 6 catches, 95 yards on 6 targets. By far the leading receiver here. It's just insane, like, what this guy does. Jonnu Smith is his guy from Tennessee, so he's just throwing the ball at his guy over and over again, and it kind of feels like Tyler Allgeier is one of his guys too, where he's just going to get the ball way too much. This is the really frustrating part about this offense, is that Bijan Robinson should get the ball more. Kyle Pitts absolutely should get the ball more, but they don't. And Desmond Ridder should not be the quarterback of this team, but he is. And until they play Taylor Heinicke, give the ball to Kyle Pitts more, and stop this Jonnu Smith stuff, they're not going to go anywhere. They need to give the ball to Bijan more if they're going to be a running team. Just really frustrating stuff from the Falcons. I do not think that Arthur Smith is going to last this full season, but we shall see. I have been wrong plenty of times this season. Bijan just had the 5 catches for 32 yards on 5 targets. Drake London, 3 catches, 28 yards, a touchdown. That touchdown really saved him here. He's trending towards a drop, honestly, but I wouldn't drop him just yet, but he is definitely on the brink of being droppable. Kyle Pitts just had the 2 catches for 21 yards. Again, another guy who's just on the brink of being droppable, but London and Pitts are like super elite talents. Like, you put Drake London on most teams, he's going to be the number 1 receiver. You put Kyle Pitts on most teams, he's going to at least out-receive Jonnu Smith, but this is the Falcons, and it's just super frustrating. Pitts had the 2 catches for 21 yards on 4 targets. Kadarius Hodge had 2 catches for 19 yards. Michael Pruitt did not haul in his only target. Mack Hollins did not haul in his 3 targets, and Tyler Allgeier had 1 catch for -4. So I wouldn't drop Pitts just yet, and I wouldn't drop London just yet. I have a feeling that once Arthur Smith is gone, they're going to surge like crazy. But if you can't wait that long, I totally understand. Keep playing Bijan, and I wouldn't play Tyler Allgeier because he hasn't been efficient in recent games. But Arthur Smith could just keep giving him the ball like he's giving Jonnu Smith the ball and frustrate us all. Hopefully, we see Taylor Heinicke here soon, and Drake London starts to get the ball more. Kyle Pitts starts to get the ball more. I still think Bijan should get the ball more than this. We should do away with these Tyler Allgeier carries. Hopefully that starts to happen soon, but I don't think it's going to happen until Arthur Smith is gone. Trevor Lawrence was 23-30 for 207 yards, a touchdown, and no picks. Good to see him start trending in the right direction as far as completion percentage is concerned. No picks in this one. Low yards and low touchdowns is frustrating as far as fantasy points is concerned, but you do like to see him play winning football like this. Travis Etienne, 20 carries, 55 yards, 2.8 yards per carry. The Falcons have a surprisingly stingy run defense this year, so I wouldn't say that this is all on Etienne here. Keep playing Etienne, but keep in mind when you play a running back against the Falcons that they may have an off day. Trevor Lawrence actually looked good here as a runner. 8 carries for 42 yards. Tank Bigsby just 3 carries for 10 yards. I don't think he should be rostered on any 10 or 12 team league team. Dearness Johnson just had the 1 carry for -2. Christian Kirk, big day for him. 8 catches, 84 yards, 12 targets. Awesome stuff. Evan Engram, solid tight end 1. 7 catches, 59 yards, 8 targets. Really good stuff from him. Calvin Ridley, so this is where the disappointing stuff comes in. 2 catches, 38 yards, a touchdown, which saved his day, but only 2 targets. I still think he is a huge buy low. When Zay Jones comes back, I think it's going to open things up for him on the outside, but it has not been good the last couple of days. And you would think him playing his former team, he would start to find some motivation to really turn things up, but it just didn't happen this game, and it hasn't happened, since week 1. I get it if you want to trade him, but I think he's a buy low right now. I would be trading for him because I think there are people out there who would give him away for nothing right now. Travis Etienne, 3 catches, 17 yards, 3 targets. Luke Farrell just had the 2 catches for 10. Jermichael Hasty didn't haul in either of his targets, and Tim Jones just had the 1 catch for -1. So keep playing Christian Kirk. I think Christian Kirk is a sell high, actually, because I think his profile is going to be a little bit more up and down, especially when Zay Jones is in. The targets are going to be spread around. Calvin Ridley isn't going to only get 2 targets every game. So sell high on Calvin Ridley, buy low on Calvin Ridley, sell high on Christian Kirk. Evan Engram, solid tight end 1. Keep playing Travis Etienne. And Trevor Lawrence, he certainly has not been a good fantasy quarterback this year. I think if you have him, I don't know if I would totally panic. You can do worse, but you can absolutely do better too. I would hang on to him and just hope that better days are ahead. Once Zay Jones gets back into this lineup, once Calvin Ridley gets regular targets, hopefully we'll see Trevor Lawrence's stats start to go up. Next game is the Broncos and the Bears. The Broncos took this one 31-28. They were down 3 touchdowns late in this game, and they came all the way back. It was just crazy stuff. 2 terrible teams fighting to see who the worst was. Russell Wilson, he had a really good game, 21-28, 223 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. He's quietly a really reliable fantasy quarterback, but this was a super easy matchup. Congratulations if you played him today. Jaleel McLaughlin led the way for all rushers after Javonte Williams went down with a hip flexor. McLaughlin had 7 carries for 72 yards, 10.3 yards per carry. Awesome stuff there. I wonder what if Javonte even misses another game because the hip flexor isn't very serious. I wonder how that split is going to be between McLaughlin and Perine, because McLaughlin is clearly the more efficient runner, but we'll just have to see what goes on there. Russell Wilson, 4 carries for 13 yards. Perine had 6 carries for 12, and Javonte had the 2 carries for no yards before he went down. Jeudy led the way for all receivers. He had 3 catches for 52 yards on 5 targets. Marvin Mims just had the 2 catches for 47 on 2 targets. McLaughlin had 3 catches for 32 and a touchdown. And Courtland Sutton had 3 catches for 27 and a touchdown. This is what I think the Broncos receiving room is going to look like the rest of the year. Jeudy was still kind of ramping up from his injury these last couple games. I think he's going to be the number 1 receiver here, and Courtland Sutton being that clear number 2, with Marvin Mims going super up and down because he's going to have limited targets because he has that deep threat role, and Jeudy and Sutton are already established. So I don't think Marvin Mims is like a starter by any means, but if you're desperate for a play, go ahead and throw him in there and just cross your fingers that it's a big week. Because, like I said, it's going to be crazy up and down. Samaje Perine just had the 2 catches for 23 yards. Lil Jordan Humphrey had a catch for 11. Chris Mannertz had a catch for 10. Javonte Williams had 3 catches for 9 before he went down. Nate Atkins had 2 catches for 8. Brandon Johnson had 1 catch for 4. And Adam Trautman, is crazy how hard he fell off after Greg Dulcich went down. He did not haul in his only target. So I think Jeudy is a fringe wide receiver play at this point. Same thing with Sutton. I think Judy's still going to emerge a little bit, so I'm going to have him ahead of Sutton in my rankings, but those two are super close. Look out for Javonte Williams' injury, and if he doesn't play next week, I think McLaughlin might be the better play than Perine here. And Russell Wilson, if he's hanging around on your waiver wire, I would suggest adding him because he's quietly being a really good fantasy quarterback this year. For the Bears, Justin Fields had a stellar day. If anybody on your team is playing the Broncos, for the love of God, play them. Justin Fields was 28 of 35, 335 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick. Just amazing stuff from him today. Khalil Herbert also had an awesome day. 18 carries for 103 yards. Surprising because it could seem like Rashawn Johnson was slowly taking over that role, but in this game, Herbert was by far the RB1. So keep an eye out on that going forward. It might be Herbert's backfield. Fields just had the 4 carries for 25 yards. Tyler Scott ended up getting 2 carries for 19. Rashawn Johnson, just the 5 carries for 13 yards. Really disappointing stuff there. Velus Jones had a carry for 10, and Cole Kmet had a carry for 1. DJ Moore had an awesome day. 8 catches, 131 yards, and a touchdown. He could be a sell high here with how well Justin Fields played, but it took a while for Justin Fields to get going last year, so I wonder if this is a sign of things to come or if we should sell high here because they're playing a bad defense. It could be one of the two. Cole Kmet had 7 catches for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. Extremely amazing stuff there by Kmet. If you started him at tight end this week, congratulations. Darnell Mooney just had the 4 catches for 51 yards on 4 targets. Chase Claypool was a healthy scratch after that, saying he was not being used right by Kupp. That was insane that the reporter asked him and he just flat out said no, that the coaches aren't using him right. That's just wild. I totally understand why he was a healthy scratch, and this was their best game offensively that they played all year, and Claypool was on the bench. So I wonder if he's going to get cut or if they're going to keep playing him. I wonder what's going to go on there. Equimania St. Brown just had the 1 catch for 21 yards. Khalil Herbert had 4 catches for 19 yards and a touchdown on 5 targets. Robert Tonyan had 2 catches for 18. Mercedes Lewis had a catch for 8, and Rashawn Johnson just the 1 catch for 2 yards. Disappointing stuff from Rashawn Johnson today. So DJ Moore, I'm going to say he's a sell high, but it's very possible that this is a sign of things to come because, like I said earlier, Fields takes a while to get going. And Khalil Herbert, gosh, it's just, Rashawn Johnson was doing really well to start the year, and just out of nowhere, he stunk in this game. I think Herbert is a solid running back play. Like, he's that fringe RB play next week. I'm going to have to run the numbers on the matchup, but where he's slotted in on the rankings next week is going to be interesting. And Justin Fields, clearly not a drop after this performance. Some people were dropping him last week. If he's on your wire, add him because he has a ton of upside, and it's possible that he keeps this going. Next game is the Dolphins and the Bills. The Bills actually beat it pretty handedly, 48-20. Tua was 25 of 35, 282 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Solid day from him. You just wish the score would have been a little different. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. Devon Achane, 8 carries, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. Raheem Mostert, 7 carries, almost the same as Achane, but he didn't even break 10 yards, let alone 100. He only had 9 yards on 7 carries, no touchdowns. So Achane is legit. He is here to stay even when Wilson comes back. I think Mostert and Wilson, they both have injury issues in their past, so Achane can step in right here. He's a young guy, rookie, super explosive, great balance. I think he fits this Dolphins offense perfectly. And I was saying this before the season started too, that he was the guy you wanted in this backfield. He is legit. If Achane is sitting around your waiver wire for whatever reason, I doubt it after last week, but go add him. And if you did add him, congratulations, because you have a potential league winner here. Tyreek Hill just had the carry for 14 yards. Braxton Berrios had a carry for 11, and Tua just had 7 yards on the ground. The Bills, they have a really good defense. That's why they beat them here today. And they did a good job of keeping Tyreek Hill in check. 3 catches, 58 yards, 5 targets. Disappointing day from him, but he's still one of the best players in fantasy. Do not trade him. Keep him on your team. Just stay patient with Tyreek Hill. He is, again, one of the best players in fantasy. Hang on to him. Jalen Waddle, 4 catches, 46 yards. They kind of spread the ball around here. This isn't what they usually do. It's usually funneled through Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but it got spread pretty evenly here. I wonder if that was part of the game plan for the Bills. Braxton Berrios actually led the way in catches by a pretty sizable margin. The next closest only had 4. Berrios had 6 catches for 43 yards and a touchdown on 6 targets. He also led the way in targets. That had to be by design on the Bills' part. Durham Smythe had 4 catches for 41 yards. Raheem Mostert had 3 catches for 36. Alec Ingold had a catch for 23. Devon Achane had 3 catches for 19. Cedric Wilson had a catch for 16. And Robbie Chosen did not haul in his only target. So keep playing Tyreek Hill. Keep playing Jalen Waddle. Don't get discouraged based off of this performance. And Devon Achane is legit. Not a fluke. A lot of people were saying that when I put him as the number 1 waiver ad. Not a fluke whatsoever. He is here to stay. And keep playing Tua. I wouldn't say that he's matchup proof totally, because he goes back to the middle of the pack when he plays a bad matchup team, but with that being his floor, I still think he's a must start every week. For the Bills, Josh Allen was phenomenal today. 21 to 25, 320 yards, 4 touchdowns and no interceptions, perfect quarterback rating, just stellar stuff from him. Latavius Murray, 4 carries for 32 yards. Surprisingly, he led the way in yards, but he also had a 29-yard rush that boosted his average there. 12 carries for 29 yards and a touchdown for James Cook. Disappointing from the yards perspective, but it's interesting. We didn't get the yards today, but we got the touchdown. And the beginning of the year, it was all yards and no touchdowns. So I wonder if those two will balance out, if we'll get some yards and a touchdown on one of these days. That has to be on its way. Keep playing James Cook. Damian Harris had 6 carries for 29. Josh Allen had 4 carries for 17 yards and a touchdown. And Kyle Allen just had 3 carries for -3. Stephon Diggs, also stellar. 6 catches, 120 yards, 3 touchdowns, 7 targets. He is one of the best players in fantasy. Do not trade him. Keep him on your team. This isn't a sell high by any means. He is the real deal. He is one of the best players in fantasy. Again, like he's not at the Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson level, but he is he's fighting for that number 3 spot if he isn't there already. Gabe Davis had 3 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown. This is 3 games in a row where Gabe Davis has played well, but the limited targets, I think he's going to come back down. I think he's a sell high because, catching all of your targets and getting a touchdown, that's just, I don't know if that's going to be I don't know if he could duplicate that game to game like this, but it has been an awesome run so far. And it wouldn't surprise me if he continues it. But yeah, in my opinion, he's a sell high. James Cook, 1 catch, 48 yards. Dalton Kincaid had 4 catches for 27 yards. 5 targets, though. That's good to see, especially when Dawson Knox only had 1 target. Latavius Murray had 2 catches for 24 yards. Trent Sherfield had 2 catches for 18. Dawson Knox, the 1 target, like I said, and 1 catch for 12 yards. Deontay Hardy had 2 catches for 10. And Khalil Shakir did not haul in his only target. So I would say sell high on Gabe Davis. Keep playing James Cook. Keep playing Stephon Diggs, obviously. And if you have Josh Allen on your team, congratulations. He is phenomenal. Next game is the Ravens and the Browns. The Ravens took this one 28-3. Lamar Jackson had a really good fantasy day. Not much through the air, 15-19, 186 yards, 2 touchdowns and no picks. But on the ground, he had 9 carries, 27 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So awesome fantasy day from him. Gus Edwards led the way for all rushers. He had 15 carries for 48 yards. Justice Hill, only the 3 carries for 33 yards. Interesting because he had been leading in carries when he's been out there. I wonder if this is injury related, but at the same time, Keaton Mitchell is on the way. He should be coming off of IR this week, so look out for him. I think he's going to be the RB1 in this backfield eventually. But having said that, Justice Hill should get more carries in this. But I don't think we should really be relying on Gus Edwards or Justice Hill long term. Melvin Gordon had 3 carries for 21 yards. Tyler Huntley had 2 carries for 8. And Zay Flowers had 1 carry for -6. Mark Andrews led the way for all receivers. He had 5 catches on 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Awesome stuff from him. Zay Flowers, the Browns are the number 1 team against wide receivers this year. So I think that's mainly the reason why Zay Flowers didn't have more production here. 3 catches for 56 yards on 4 targets for him. Melvin Gordon just had the 1 catch for 23. Patrick Ricard had a catch for 14. Devin Duvernay had 2 catches for 8. Nelson Aguilar had a catch for 4. And Gus Edwards had 2 catches for 1. So obviously, keep playing Mark Andrews. Don't worry about Zay Flowers. This is just a product of the matchup. And they didn't really throw the ball that much. And I don't really think there's a running back to roster here necessarily. I think Keaton Mitchell is a really good stash. And Lamar is proving why he is an elite fantasy quarterback. For the Browns, DTR got his first start, and it did not go well. He was 19-36, 121 yards, no touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. I think better days are ahead for him, but Deshaun Watson should be back in the team. They have a bye week next week, but the week after that, Deshaun Watson should be fine. He almost played in this game, so this isn't going to be a DTR team long term. Pierre Strong led the way for all rushers. He had 5 carries on 49 yards. Jerome Ford had 9 carries for 26. The efficiency is concerning with Jerome Ford, especially when Pierre Strong has been a lot better in that regard. But Strong did have a 40-yard run here, so that definitely helps out that average some. But at the same time, Jerome Ford, still the clear leader in carries, 9 carries, 26 yards. DTR just had the 4 for 24. Kareem Hunt, only the 5 carries for 12 yards. I think that's going to develop more over time. Harrison Bryant had a carry for 2, and Elijah Moore, 1 carry. Yeah, that was really ugly. A carry for negative 20 yards. Good Lord, that was just a brutal play there. David Njoku, with all the burns, he was still out there, leading receiver, 6 catches, 46 yards for him. Rookie quarterbacks love throwing the tight end, so I think that's what that was. I don't think Deshaun Watson is going to really feed Njoku like that at any point this season. Elijah Moore had 2 catches for 20 yards. Jerome Ford had 5 catches for 19 on 6 targets. Amari Cooper also had 6 targets, but just the 1 catch for 16. Disappointing stuff from him with the rookie throwing him the ball. Donovan Peoples-Jones had a catch for 7 on 4 targets. Jordan Akins, the other tight end, had a catch for 6. Cedric Tillman had a catch for 5. Harrison Bryant had a catch for 2. And Marquise Goodwin had a catch for no yards. So I don't think this means that David Njoku is a lock-it-in tight end 1. I think this is more a product of the rookie quarterback being in charge. Jerome Ford, keep playing him, but be cautious because the efficiency has not been there lately. And don't worry about DTR starting long-term. Deshaun Watson is going to be back next game. Next game was the Steelers and the Texans. The Texans beat the crap out of them, 30-6. Kenny Pickett, this team cannot throw the ball. 15-23, 114 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. He also went down with an injury in this one. Mr. Trubisky came in 3-of-5 for 18 yards. They just have no passing game to speak of whatsoever. Do not play George Pickens. Don't play anybody in this passing offense. Just brutal stuff here. Najee Harris, though, is carving out a modest role for himself. 14 carries for 71 yards. This is better than how he started. He seems to be clearly asserting himself as the guy who's going to get more carries, at least, than Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren had 8 carries for 29 yards today. Pickett just had the 2 carries for 9, and Calvin Austin had a carry for 5. Najee Harris leading the way in receiving. This was the kind of game it was. 1 catch, 32 yards, you're the leading receiver for the Steelers. Jaylen Warren had 6 catches for 26 yards. Awesome to see the passing game usage with him. The roles are clearing up for the backfield there. Jaylen Warren, going to get the receiving work. Najee Harris, even though he's the leading receiver here, just the 1 catch, he's going to get all of the carries. Clear roles being defined there. That's at least a good thing. George Pickens, super disappointing. 3 catches for 25 yards on 7 targets. My admiration for George Pickens and my undying loyalty for George Pickens is waning by the second. This is kind of what happened at Georgia. They thought that they had, like, when he came in as a freshman, everyone was saying that they found the next A.J. Green, and he didn't really do much at Georgia. I'm concerned that something similar is happening this year where he shows off that super impressive talent. Like, he makes catches that most guys cannot, but he just hasn't been able to harness that ability. 3 catches for 25 yards. He had the one game where he went over 100 yards, but even with Deontay Johnson out, he's just not producing. The offensive coordinator is for sure to blame. The quarterback absolutely is for sure to blame, but just it's been disappointing so far for George Pickens. Calvin Austin, his production will dip when Deontay Johnson comes back, but he's been solid. 3 catches for 24 yards on 5 targets for him. Darnell Washington had a catch for 10. Allen Robinson had a catch for 8, and Pat Freiermuth had he had 3 catches for 7 yards. So hesitate if you're going to play anybody in this Steelers passing offense. It just looks brutal. I think Najee Harris is a solid, he's on the fringe of being a play every week. He's going to have inefficiency issues, but he's at least asserting himself as that guy who's going to get carries. You could do worse than Jaylen Warren, too. He's going to get passing game involvement for sure. But at the same time, this passing game stinks. Obviously, even if Pickett comes back, do not play him. Don't play Mr. Trubisky. This offense needs a ton of work. For the Texans, C.J. Stroud looks incredible. The completion percentage isn't there, but he looks really good. He looks comfortable. He's delivering the ball. He's making his receivers look good. He's putting it in awesome places. Like, he's protecting his receivers when he throws the ball. That's something you don't see from a rookie quarterback. He just has full control of this offense, and it's been awesome to see. 16-30 today, 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. He's breaking rookie records. Really good stuff from him. Devin Singletary had the trick play. 1 pass, 1 completion, 6 yards, and a touchdown for him through the air. Dameon Pierce, 24 carries, 81 yards. The inefficiency is concerning, but at least he's got 24 carries here. He's firmly entrenched as the number 1 running back in this offense. Singletary not doing much better as far as efficiency is concerned. That could be a product of the O-line. It's going to be interesting to see if that efficiency picks up once the O-line gets healthier, but definitely concerning stuff there from Dameon Pierce. Devin Singletary had 7 carries for 25 yards. CJ Stroud had 4 carries for 16. Tank Dell had 2 carries for 13, and Mike Boone had a carry for 4. Nico Collins has been tremendous for through the first 4 games here. Last game wasn't that great, but he rebounded in a big way. 7 catches, 168 yards, 2 touchdowns on 9 targets. Just ridiculous stuff from him. If you played him today, congratulations. I wasn't really suggesting it because I thought Tank Dell was going to emerge a little more, but Nico Collins absolutely proved me wrong. I was like, I've been laughing at analysts who just say, oh, he's tall, like that's why he's a good receiver. And I think I've been trying to fight against that. Like, just because he's tall doesn't mean he's a good receiver. We need a little more detail than that. But at the same time, he has height that a lot of these guys don't have. And more importantly, CJ Stroud loves throwing to him. So Nico Collins looks really good. He looks like a solid receiver play week to week at this point. Dalton Schultz had 3 catches for 42 yards and a touchdown. Much better than he's been doing there. Dameon Pierce just had the 1 catch for 27 yards on 2 targets. Robert Woods, he seems to be going down the pecking order a little bit as Tank Dell emerges, even though, he had double the amount of targets that Tank Dell did. But I think Dell is going to be more of a thing here, and Woods is going to drop off. But, I also thought Nico Collins was going to drop off too. So we'll see how that goes. I still think it's going to be Collins, Dell, Woods at the end of the year. Woods had the 3 catches for 26 yards here on 6 targets. John Mechie had a catch for 22. Tank Dell, disappointing stuff here, had a catch for 16. Devin Singletary had a catch for 11, and Andrew Beck did not haul in his only target. So Nico Collins asserting himself as a fantasy starter week to week. Dameon Pierce, I think he's more of a high floor guy because of the volume. And CJ Stroud, he is looking like an ad right now. If for some reason he's still on your waiver wire, add him because he would be a really reliable backup for you at this point. Next game is the Vikings and the Panthers. The Vikings took this one 21-13. Kirk Cousins, disappointing stuff here. 12 of 19, 139 yards. You love the touchdowns, but 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So the Panthers are like the anti-Titans. The Titans, super vulnerable through the air, super stingy run defense. The Panthers, super stingy pass defense, very vulnerable against the run. So I think that was more what happened here because Alexander Mattison and Cam Akers both had awesome averages. Madison was 17 carries, 95 yards. Cam Akers, 5 carries, 40 yards. Madison had 5.6 yards per carry. Cam Akers had 8 yards per carry. They just dominated on the ground in this one because the Panthers' rush defense is that bad. Justin Jefferson made the most of a crappy passing day here. 6 catches, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns. Love to see the touchdowns. Awesome stuff. Obviously, he is the best receiver in fantasy. TJ Hawkinson, disappointing here. 2 catches for 24 yards. Buy low, absolutely. KJ Osborne, just a 1 catch for 16 yards. Cam Akers had 2 catches for 11. Alexander Mattison had a catch for 3. And Jordan Addison, disappointing stuff here. No catches, only 1 target. A lot of people were giving me crap when I said that Jordan Addison was a sell high. And clearly, he's not a sell high anymore because back-to-back games here have not gone so well. KJ Osborne out targeting him. It's going to be up and down. I think him and KJ Osborne are going to be kind of trading that number 3 receiver role behind TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson. So don't panic on Hawkinson. If somebody in your league is panicking, I would trade for him. Justin Jefferson, obviously you play him every week. Hold off on playing Jordan Addison. I think Alexander Mattison and Cam Akers, this next game, the carries are going to get closer. I think, Madison is still going to be the clear RB1, but I think Cam Akers is going to get a little bit more carries. I think it's going to be closer to a 2/3, 1/3 split, kind of like the Falcons are doing right now with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Allgeier. I think Madison is going to be the clear RB1, but Cam Akers is still going to get his touches in this offense. and keep playing Kirk Cousins. I think this is more a product of a matchup than anything. For the Panthers, Bryce Young was back. He was 25 of 32, 204 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He has no help at all, no weapons. The offensive line has underperformed. It's going to be a rough rookie season for him, but that does not mean that he is a bad player whatsoever. Just because Stroud and Anthony Richardson are flourishing in their roles doesn't mean that Bryce Young is a huge bust because he was the number one pick. Got to be patient with Bryce Young. This situation here is not ideal for any quarterback, and I think a quarterback as good as Young, as poised as Young, performing like this is just kind of proof that the Panthers just have nothing to surround him with right now. Chuba Hubbard led the way for all rushers. He had 14 carries for 41 yards. Miles Sanders playing through a groin injury in this one, just the 13 carries for 19 yards. Don't panic on him. Like I said, that's a product of the injury more than anything. I don't think Chuba Hubbard is taking over this backfield. Bryce Young had 2 carries for 10 yards. Laviska Shenault had a carry for 7, and Adam Thielen had a carry for 6. Speaking of Thielen, he was the leading receiver in this one. Revenge game for him. 7 catches, 76 yards on 8 targets. Solid stuff from him. He's solidifying solid receiver starter week to week in fantasy as the number one receiver in this offense. And with how bad they are, they're going to be playing from behind a lot. So Thielen could be a sneaky starter week to week. Terrace Marshall, 9 catches for 56 yards on 10 targets for him. DJ Chark had 2 catches for 28. Miles Sanders had 3 catches for 13. Laviska Shenault had a catch for 12. Chuba Hubbard had 2 catches for 12. Hayden Hurst had 1 catch for 7. And Ian Thomas did not haul in his only target. So I think Adam Thielen, solid receiver starter. Don't panic about Miles Sanders. He's absolutely a buy low right now because he was playing through that groin injury. He almost missed with that groin injury too. So huge buy low opportunity there. And this is not going to be the season for Bryce Young. I think he's more of a dynasty play right now. Next game was the Rams and the Colts. The Rams pulled this one out in overtime, 21-23. Stafford had a solid day, 27 of 40 for 319 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Kyren Williams was a baller. He is money in the bank, a clear must start every single week. 25 carries, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns, just monster stuff from him. Ronnie Rivers, the Fresno State product, had 9 carries for 47 yards, spelling Kyren Williams there. And Matthew Stafford had 2 carries for 14 yards. Puka Nacua, monster day. Again, 9 catches, 163 yards, a touchdown, 10 targets. Just monster stuff from him. I wonder what it's going to look like when Kupp comes back because Puka runs a lot of the same routes that Kupp does. So part of me thinks that there's a possibility at least that Kupp comes in, takes Puka's spot, and Puka takes a clear back seat while Atwell kind of stays where he is because he's kind of that speed guy. His role isn't really going to be challenged by Kupp in my opinion. It's more Puka's role. But if you're talking about just guys you want on the field, Puka clearly has a connection with Stafford, so you want him out there with Kupp. It just makes me wonder how, as far as roles are concerned, what's that's going to look like with Kupp and Puka and Tutu all on the field together. But we'll see what that looks like here soon. It looks like Kupp's going to come back for week 5, but that isn't set in stone yet. Tyler Higbee had a solid day. It looked like he was going to miss for a while there. 5 catches, 64 yards on 11 targets for him. Just awesome stuff, especially for a tight end there. Probably wouldn't be awesome for a receiver, but for a tight end, that is phenomenal. Van Jefferson, 2 catches, 29 yards, continues to not be the number one receiver in this offense. He was super disappointing to start the year. And just kind of continues to stick with his role. He's just like, Van Jefferson is Van Jefferson, and that is not going to change regardless of who goes down. Kyren Williams, 3 catches for 24 yards there, just added to his day. Tutu Atwell, a little disappointing today. 5 catches, 24 yards, 9 targets. He usually has a lot higher yards than this. Kind of like I was saying with Puka, when Cooper Kupp comes back, he could be taking a clear back seat because Puka has been doing this well, but again, watch for that. Ronnie Rivers had 2 catches for 10 yards, and Bryson Hopkins just had the 1 catch for 5. So I would still start Puka. Just generally, obviously it depends on what else you have, but I think Puka is still a decent start when Kupp comes back. Tutu, not as much. Although there is a possibility that Tutu could stick around. Kyren Williams, money in the bank, must start him every single week. And Stafford, if you're looking for like a backup quarterback, I think that's more what Stafford is. I wouldn't say he's a for sure fantasy starter, but he's been getting some yards recently. For the Colts, Anthony Richardson, rough completion percentage, 11 to 25, but 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had a touchdown on the ground, 10 carries for 56 yards. Really solid fantasy day for him, but you hope that completion percentage starts to clear up a little bit. Zach Moss had 18 carries for 70 yards. Trey Sermon also had the 3 carries for 7. So Zach Moss, as long as Jonathan Taylor's out, he is firmly the RB1. He is the workhorse in this backfield for sure. Drew Ogletree led the way for all receivers. Surprising stuff there. 3 catches for 48 yards and a touchdown for the tight end. Alec Pierce had 1 catch for 38 yards. Mo Alley Cox had a catch for 35 and a touchdown. Josh Downs had 2 catches for 34. Kylan Granson had 2 catches for 24. Michael Pittman, just the 1 catch for 15 yards there on 5 targets. Disappointing stuff from him. Isaiah McKenzie had a catch for 6, and Zach Moss did not haul in his only target. So I would say keep playing Michael Pittman. This was a weird day, but so the Rams are surprisingly good against receivers this year. So I'm going to chalk it up to that because Pittman has just been being fed like crazy these targets recently. Drew Ogletree, I'm not expecting to be the leading receiver most days. As long as Jonathan Taylor's out, Zach Moss is the guy, but it doesn't sound like Taylor's going to be gone that long because they opened up the 21-day practice window on Wednesday, so he might be back next week. And Anthony Richardson, he is still a clear must start because he racks up touchdowns, whether through the air or on the ground, and he racks up yards on the ground too, which is not something that a lot of quarterbacks do. Next game was the Bucs and the Saints. The Bucs beat the crap out of them 26-9. Baker Mayfield had a great day, 25 of 32, 246 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. He's becoming a really reliable fantasy quarterback. He did not do well against the Eagles last week, but he's been really solid. They have Geno Smith's quarterbacks coach as their OC. So the OC of the Bucs was Geno Smith's quarterback coach with Seattle last year. So maybe he's bringing some of that fairy dust that he sprinkled on to Geno Smith over to Baker Mayfield this year. We'll just have to keep watching out for that, especially because the Saints are a good defense. It's not like Baker Mayfield played a crappy team today. And Mike Evans held in check again. Marshawn Lattimore, to an extent, held him in check because Mike Evans did go down with an injury. But still, Evans not performing well, and still Baker Mayfield was able to make something of this day. So really good stuff from Baker there. Rachaad White continues low efficiency, high volume, 15 carries, 56 yards. Baker Mayfield had 8 carries for 31. Keyshawn Vaughn, 9 carries for 16. Interesting to see that his carry total got pretty close to Rachaad White, but that could be a product of them beating the crap out of them too. And Devin Tompkins had just the carry for 11 yards. Chris Godwin flourished with Mike Evans going down. 8 catches for 114 yards for him on 11 targets. Just stellar stuff. If Evans misses more time, Chris Godwin is a must-start. Devin Tompkins had 4 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown. Evans, before he went down, had 3 catches for 40 yards on 3 targets. Rachaad White had 3 catches for 22 yards through the air. Cade Otton had 3 catches for 13 yards and a touchdown. Trey Palmer, the rookie from Nebraska, had 2 catches for 6 yards and a touchdown. Keyshawn Vaughn just had the 1 catch for 3, and Raheem Jarrett also had a catch for 3. So if Evans misses time, play Godwin for sure. If you can avoid playing Rachaad White, I would recommend that because it seems like they don't want to use him, but they're kind of stuck because Keyshawn Vaughn isn't efficient. Sean Tucker hasn't been showing efficiency either. So they might just be stuck feeding Rachaad White a whole bunch. So he's a high floor, low upside guy. And you could absolutely do worse than Baker Mayfield. He's a really solid backup in fantasy right now. For the Saints, really weird stuff. Derek Carr has the sprained AC joint, but they still let him play in this one a week removed from that injury. 23 of 37, 127 yards. He played like someone with a hurt shoulder, just checking it down like crazy. Better days are ahead for him for sure. This was a product of that injury. I just wonder why they didn't play Jameis Winston. Weird stuff there. Taysom Hill had the 1 pass for 13 yards, and Jameis Winston came in and threw a pick. So Alvin Kamara, leading rusher, I think he is a must-start, especially while Jamal Williams is out. 11 carries, 51 yards. Really good stuff against a stingy run defense in the Bucs. Taysom Hill had 4 carries for 10 yards. Adam Prentice had a carry for 5. Kendre Miller had a carry for 3. And Derek Carr had 2 carries for 1 yard. Michael Thomas led the way for all receivers. He had 4 catches on 53 yards. a very high floor, low upside guy. Rashid Shaheed had 3 catches for 33 on 7 targets. Alvin Kamara, this is a super weird stat line. 13 catches, but only 33 yards on 14 targets. You don't see that every day. Again, this is a product of someone in my IG Live said this, that with Derek Carr's hurt shoulder, he could check it down to Kamara a bunch, and that guy absolutely nailed it because 13 catches is crazy. And for only 33 yards, like I said, you just never see that. Taysom Hill had 1 catch for 7 yards. Adam Prentice had a catch for 5. Kendra Miller had a catch for 5. Chris Olave, super disappointing stuff, but Derek Carr wasn't able to throw the ball down the field here. I think that's what happened. 1 catch for 4 yards for him. Crazy disappointing. And Lynn Bowden did not haul in his only target. So don't get discouraged about Chris Olave. I would still keep playing him. You could do worse than Michael Thomas. I think Alvin Kamara is a must start. And don't get too concerned with Derek Carr. He'll be better. I just wonder how much better he's going to be next week. Next game is the Commanders and the Eagles. The Eagles took this one in overtime, 34-31. Sam Howell was good, 29 of 41, 290 yards, a touchdown, no picks. I wouldn't go adding him, but solid stuff from him. The Eagles are another team, like super stingy run defense, fairly vulnerable pass defense. So receivers and quarterbacks are pretty decent starts against the Eagles. Baker Mayfield didn't do well last week, but still, there's some vulnerabilities there in the Eagles secondary. Brian Robinson overperformed, in my opinion. 14 carries, 45 yards. That touchdown was money. He almost had another touchdown, but he fumbled it at the goal line, and Terry McLaurin recovered it. So, don't take this inefficiency as a sign of things to come. This is more a product of the Eagles' run defense. Sam Howell had 6 carries for 40 yards. Antonio Gibson had 6 carries for 19. Logan Thomas had a carry for 2, and Curtis Samuel had a carry for 1. Terry McLaurin had an awesome day. 8 catches, 86 yards, 10 targets. Keep putting him into your lineups. De'Ami Brown had 2 catches for 51 yards on 3 targets. He has some rapport with Sam Howell going back to North Carolina, so I think he's due for some surprising stat lines. He's not going to be an ad in fantasy or anything like that, but he's going to surprise you with his yards in a lot of these games here. Curtis Samuel, 7 catches for 51 yards. Really awesome day for him. Logan Thomas, somewhat disappointing with how vulnerable the Eagles defense has been against tight ends. Just the 3 catches for 41 yards here today. Jahan Dotson, a rebound game. 4 catches, 27 yards. That touchdown is awesome. I would sell high on him because he's been not good during this year, and still he didn't put up very many yards in this game. But still, that touchdown is very appealing. Byron Pringle had the catch for 15 yards. Antonio Gibson just had the 1 catch for 7. John Bates had a catch for 6, and Brian Robinson added 2 catches for 6. So keep playing Terry McLaurin, keep playing Brian Robinson, drop Antonio Gibson, and I would hold off on adding Sam Howell. I would rather have Baker Mayfield. I would definitely rather have CJ Stroud. I think he's at the bottom of that middle tier. You can absolutely do worse, but you can definitely do better than Sam Howell, so just hold off on adding him for now. For the Eagles, Jalen Hurts had a solid day here today, 25 of 37, 319 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Really good stuff there. DeAndre Swift had 14 carries for 56 yards and a touchdown. He's really asserting himself as the RB1 in this backfield, clearly. Because Kenneth Gainwell only had 4 carries for 14 yards. Lower carries, lower average. This is absolutely DeAndre Swift's backfield. And Jalen Hurts also added 34 yards on the ground on 9 carries. Monster day from A.J. Brown. 9 catches, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. He cost him at the end with that taunting penalty to force us into overtime. But still, on the stat sheet, he was amazing. Devontae Smith, also really good. 7 catches, 78 yards, 9 targets. Dallas Goedert has been somewhat disappointing so far in fantasy, but that's kind of the case for all tight ends except for a couple. 2 catches, 25 yards on 4 targets for him. DeAndre Swift caught all of his targets for 4 catches, 23 yards. Olamide Zaccheaus had a catch for 11, and Kenneth Gainwell had 2 catches for 7. So I think Kenneth Gainwell is a drop at this point. Keep playing Devontae Smith. Keep playing A.J. Brown. Dallas Goedert, that's a tough one. I would still play him because no tight end is really... there's a couple tight ends playing well. So just trust he was fairly steady last year with Jalen Hurts, so I would keep playing him. DeAndre Swift, a clear, you got to play him every week. And obviously, you're going to play Jalen Hurts. A lot of really good players on this Eagles offense. Next game is the Bengals and the Titans, and the Titans beat the crap out of them, 27-3. What is going on with this Bengals passing offense? 20 of 30 for Joe Burrow today, only 165 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions in a good matchup. So I saw some fantasy doctors suggesting that his ramp-up period for his calf could extend past week 6. So there might be some inefficiencies until then, but having said that, even if you have a hurt calf, you should perform better than this against a weak secondary. Really concerning stuff with Joe Burrow here. Next week is going to be really interesting. Joe Mixon had 14 carries for 67 yards in a tough matchup, so good stuff from him. Trevion Williams had the 1 carry for 4, and Joe Burrow had 3 carries for just the 1 yard. Jamar Chase, he was complaining after the game, saying he's always open. I'm not going to sit here and say he's lying either. 7 catches, 73 yards on 9 targets. Something's going on with Joe Burrow. I don't know. Like, it might be that calf, but maybe there's something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, because this is super weird. Tyler Boyd, 4 catches, 26 yards on 7 targets. T. Higgins went down with an injury, but before he did, 2 catches, 19 yards, 4 targets. Tanner Hudson had 2 catches for 18. Trenton Irwin had a catch for 17. Joe Mixon just had the 1 catch for 9. Mitchell Wilcox had a catch for 7. Drew Sample had a catch for -1. And Chase Brown, the rookie from Illinois, just had the 1 catch for -3. So I think Joe Mixon is still a must start. Jamar Chase, still a must start. 7 catches for 73 yards is still a solid stat line. He's just not this elite receiver that we drafted him as. Joe Mixon, super reliable. Keep playing him for sure. And hold off on Joe Burrow, because this has to be the weirdest thing going off in the NFL right now with how bad he's been playing. It might be something where we see improvements past week 6, but still, I'm just really concerned from a fantasy point of view as to what's going on with the low production from this Bengals offense. For the Titans, they had a really good day. Ryan Tannehill, 18-25, 240 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. That'll get it done. Derrick Henry, 1 pass, 1 completion, 2 yards, a touchdown. Awesome stuff there. He also led the way for all rushers in a big way. 22 carries, 122 yards, and a touchdown. This is the Derrick Henry we know and love. Keep playing him. Never bench him. Tyjae Spears, 5 carries for 40 yards. If anything happens to Derrick Henry, Tyjae Spears is really good. So having Spears as a handcuff to Henry would be a really good idea. And Ryan Tannehill had the 6 carries for 11 yards. DeAndre Hopkins, solid day today. That's good tight end stuff, but I'm not so sure about receiver. 4 catches for 63 yards for him on 6 targets. Nick Westbrook-Akine had 5 catches for 51 yards and a touchdown. Chris Moore, 1 catch for 44. Chico Okonkwo had 3 catches for 29 yards. Josh Wiley had 2 catches for 26 and a touchdown. Tyjae Spears, 3 catches for 18 yards there. Derrick Henry, just a 1 catch for 11. And Colton Dowell did not haul in his only target. So interesting that Josh Wiley is getting pretty close to Chico Okonkwo there in production, but Wiley caught that touchdown through by Derrick Henry, so they might have had something schemed up weird to where the second tight end was going to run free because they were looking at the original tight end, but I'm just kind of guessing there. There might be something going on as far as the evening there between Wiley and Okonkwo. I think Hopkins, don't drop him, but he's more of a desperation play at this point. Like, not so much desperation, but like a low-end play. Derrick Henry, you got to start him every single week, no matter what. Even when he has these low games where he's inefficient, don't let that affect you. I mean, it's going to affect you because you might lose your matchup, but he's Derrick Henry. You still got to play him every week. Next game is the Raiders and the Chargers. The Chargers took this one 24-17. Aiden O'Connell, first career start with Jimmy Garoppolo out, 24-39, 238 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. You know, Dorian Thompson-Robinson played a lot worse than this, so rookie quarterbacks did not do totally well today. So, I mean, C.J. Stroud did for sure, but and you could argue Anthony Richardson did from a fantasy point of view, but I wouldn't say this was a total bust from Aiden O'Connell either. That yards and that completion percentage is not bad whatsoever. Josh Jacobs rebounded, 17 carries, 58 yards, and a touchdown. Somewhat inefficient, but good to see him bounce back. He was also super productive as a receiver, 8 catches for 81 yards on 11 targets. Just monster day for him. And through the air was where he really did his damage. Zamir White had 3 carries for 15 yards, and Aiden O'Connell just had the 3 rushing yards, but he had a rushing touchdown to go with it. Jacobs, like I said, 8 catches, 81 yards. He led all receivers today. Davante Adams, 8 catches, 75 yards on 13 targets. Jacoby Myers, disappointing day today with the rookie. 2 catches for 33 yards for him. Amir Abdullah had 2 catches for 14. Jakob Johnson had a catch for 12. Hunter Renfrow had 2 catches for 12. That's more than he's been doing recently. And Austin Hooper had the 1 catch for 11. So keep playing Davante Adams. Obviously, Jacoby Myers, hold off on playing him unless Jimmy Garoppolo is in. Josh Jacobs, awesome to see him bounce back. I just wouldn't expect this sort of receiving production week to week. I think that was more a product of the rookie quarterback checking it down. And Jimmy Garoppolo should be back next week. So Jacoby Myers managers do not need to panic. Josh Jacobs, clear must start. Keep rolling him out there. And Garoppolo is on his way. For the Chargers, Justin Herbert hurt his hand in this one. So he was only 13 to 24 for 167 yards, a touchdown and a pick. But, I mean, for someone who had a splint on his left hand, this was super impressive stuff, especially that throw at the end there that sealed the win. Joshua Kelly with Austin Eckler out, he had a whole bunch of carries, 17 carries, 65 yards for him. This is much better than he's been doing as of late. I wonder what his role is going to look like when Eckler comes back, because when they were both on the field, they kind of shared carries, but with how inefficient Kelly has been lately, I don't know if that's going to be the case long term. Darius Davis had 3 carries for 51 yards due to that 51-yard rush there. Justin Herbert had 27 yards on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns for him, though, and Isaiah Spiller had 5 carries for 12. Joshua Palmer was the leading receiver. He had 3 catches for 77 yards on 8 targets. Really good stuff from him. Keep playing him. Keenan Allen was somewhat disappointing, but I think this had more to do with Herbert's injury. 3 catches for 32 yards and a touchdown for him. The touchdown saved his day. Quentin Johnston just had the 1 catch for 18. I don't think that he's more of a stash and a dynasty play at this point, more than someone you need to play week to week. I think Palmer is firmly as that number 2 receiver spot. Darius Davis had 2 catches for 16. Isaiah Spiller had 2 catches for 15. Gerald Everett had 2 catches for 9. Donald Parham did not haul in his only target, and Stone Smart did not haul in his only target. So keep playing Joshua Palmer. Keep playing Keenan Allen. Don't get too discouraged by this output from Keenan. Don't get discouraged by this Herbert injury either. He should be fine. Just keep an eye on how severe this is, because it was heavily splinted and it looked like a dislocated finger. Maybe a break there. Just something we'll have to watch moving forward. I don't think he'll miss time because he did play through it today. And Joshua Kelly, if you need the roster spot, I can understand why you would drop him, but hold on to him if you can, just because him and Eckler shared the rushing duties when they were both in the game. Next game was the Patriots and the Cowboys, and this was an absolute beatdown. The Cowboys beat them 38-3. Mac Jones, tough day for him. I was alone on the Mac Jones is a good quarterback bandwagon, and I feel like I should be jumping off now. But this was a really tough defense, so we'll see how next week goes. 12-21 today for Mac, 150 yards through the air. No touchdowns, 2 picks, brutal stuff from him. Bailey Zappi came in, 4-9, 57 yards through the air for him. Ramondre Stevenson led the way for all rushers. He had 14 carries for 30 yards, but no rushers really got it going in this one. Zeke Elliott in a revenge game, only 6 carries for 16 yards. Disappointing stuff there. And Mac Jones added 7 yards on the ground. Hunter Henry led the way for all receivers. I think he's a really solid tight end play week to week. 4 catches, 51 yards in a tough matchup with the quarterback playing like crap. I think this is positive news for Hunter Henry. He's a good buy low candidate, in my opinion. Demario Douglas, the rookie, had 2 catches for 45 yards on 3 targets. Kendrick Bourne just had the 2 catches for 36 on 3. Devontae Parker had 2 catches for 33. Juju Smith-Schuster had a catch for 14. Mike Gesicki had a catch for 12. Ramondre Stevenson just the 2 catches for 10 yards. And Ezekiel Elliott had 2 catches for 6. So this is what the passing offense for the Patriots is going to look like. Hunter Henry is going to get his looks, but it's going to be super evenly distributed throughout these receivers here. Ramondre Stevenson, even when all signs were pointing towards Ezekiel Elliott having a big game back in Dallas, there was even reports that he was taking most of the starters reps in practice. That did not come to fruition. This is Ramondre Stevenson's backfield for the long term. He's a borderline play every week because Zeke is still there and he hasn't been very good so far. And this offense just hasn't really gotten it going like that to where Ramondre can really show what he does. So, you know, it depends on what you have also. I wouldn't say he's a for sure sit or a for sure play at this point. And Mac Jones, I want to hold off before I completely fall off the bandwagon of him being a good quarterback. I want to see what he does against a worse defense next week, but him getting replaced by Bailey Zappi is not a good sign. For the Cowboys, Dak Prescott was 28 of 34, 261 yards, a touchdown, and no picks. Solid day from him. This is kind of the Dak Prescott special here. High completion percentage, middle of the road yards, not a lot of touchdowns. Very middle of the road stuff from him. And Cooper Rush had 2 passes for 20 yards. He came in with the blowout there. Tony Pollard led the way for all rushers. He had 11 carries on 47 yards. Javonte Turpin had a rush for 46. CeeDee Lamb had a carry for 12. Rico Dowdle had 3 carries for 9. Deuce Vaughn had 8 carries for 9. Interesting to see him get some goal line work. I do like having a super small goal line back, though, because he can kind of get lost in that scuffle there. Hunter Lepke had 2 carries for 4 and a touchdown. Dak Prescott had just the 1 carry for -1, and Cooper Rush had 3 carries for -2. Jake Ferguson leading the way for all receivers here. He's been getting targets, just hasn't been hauling into him really until today. 7 catches for 77 yards for him on 7 targets. Really good stuff from him, leading the way in targets. Michael Gallup, another good game. 5 catches for 60 yards. Interesting that Brandon Cooks and CeeDee Lamb were well behind Michael Gallup in this one. Jalen Tolbert had 4 catches for 53 yards. CeeDee Lamb had 4 catches for 36. Disappointing stuff there, but he did have the touchdown that saved him. Brandon Cooks, I think he's a solid drop. 4 catches for 27 yards for him. Tony Pollard had 3 catches for 13. Rico Dowdle had a catch for 8. Javonte Turpin had a catch for 5. Deuce Vaughn had a catch for 2. And Luke Schoonmaker did not haul in any of his 3 targets. So if we learned anything from this, I think Dak Prescott is kind of confirming who he is. Jake Ferguson, with Luke Schoonmaker not playing very well and him playing extremely well, I think Jake Ferguson is a really solid add right now if he's on your waiver wire. And, if you're discouraged through this performance as far as starting Tony Pollard, don't be. This was just a beatdown. Tony Pollard's going to do a lot better than this. They're going to lean on him heavier when the game is more competitive, and he'll take care of business. So don't get discouraged by Tony Pollard through this one. Next game was the Cardinals and the 49ers. The 49ers took this one 35-16. The Cardinals were keeping it competitive there for a while too. Josh Dobbs, 28 of 41, 265 yards, 2 touchdowns and no picks. He's been playing really well. That's got to be one of the biggest surprises of the season so far, of how well he's been playing. I don't think he's a fantasy starter because it's just so weird that he's playing this well. But, I mean, if he does it again next week, I guess we just have no choice but to, throw him into the mix with all these starters here. But we were a little early on Jordan Love. That just kind of like, I want to see it again from Josh Dobbs before I'm like, okay, we absolutely have to start him when there's a good matchup. James Conner in a tough matchup here, still 11 carries, 52 yards, 4.7 yards per carry. He's been doing really well this season. Josh Dobbs also had 48 yards on the ground. Amari DiMercado had a carry for 3, and Ezekiel Turner also had a carry for 2. Hollywood Brown led the way for all receivers. He's a really good fantasy starter right now. Really steady. 7 catches, 96 yards on 10 targets for him. Good stuff there. Michael Wilson, he could be a guy who's emerging here because he's been getting a lot of snaps recently, just hasn't been getting the targets like he has in this game. 7 catches, 76 yards, 2 touchdowns. Really good stuff from him. Definitely keep an eye on him as we go forward. He could be that number 2 receiver behind Hollywood Brown. Zach Ertz had 6 catches for 53 yards on 10 targets. Good to see the targets come back for him. Amari DiMercado had 3 catches for 21. Zach Pascal had 3 for 10. Trey McBride had a catch for 5. James Conner had a catch for 4. And Jeff Swaim did not haul in his only target. And Rondale Moore, disappointing stuff there. 2 targets and no catches. So I think Hollywood Brown is really asserting himself as a weekly play. Zach Ertz, last week was disappointing, but if he's one of the most targeted tight ends right now, so he's a really solid tight end starter. And keep playing James Conner. Don't get discouraged by this. And Josh Dobbs might just be a fantasy starter this year. We'll just have to see. For the 49ers, Brock Purdy was stellar. 20 of 21, 283 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. Just amazing completion percentage day from him. He is a phenomenal game manager. Christian McCaffrey, 20 carries, 106 yards, 3 touchdowns. More Christian McCaffrey things from Christian McCaffrey. He's really asserting himself as arguably the best I'm saying he's asserting himself, and then I'm saying arguably, but he is arguably the best player in fantasy football right now. He is just money in the bank for elite production every week. Obviously, keep playing him. He is a must start no matter what the matchup is. Jordan Mason, 3 carries for 10 yards. Deebo Samuel just had the 3 carries for 6. Kyle Juszczyk had 2 carries for 3. Brock Purdy had 2 carries for 0 yards, and Sam Darnold had the 1 carry for -1. Brandon Ayuk had a monster day with Deebo Samuel limited by injury. 6 catches for 148 yards for him. Really awesome stuff there. Christian McCaffrey also added 7 catches for 71 yards and a touchdown. He is just ridiculous. Ray McLeod had 2 catches for 22. Jordan Mason had a catch for 13. Willie Snead had a catch for 9. George Kittle, just the 1 catch for 9. Disappointing stuff there with only 1 target. Ronnie Bell had the 1 catch for 7, and Kyle Juszczyk had the catch for 4. So I think Brandon Ayuk, when Deebo Samuel is healthy, there's an argument that he should be benched. But if Deebo Samuel is hobbled at all, I think Brandon Ayuk is a must start. Christian McCaffrey, looking like the best player in fantasy football right now. And Brock Purdy is a really solid fantasy starter. With this completion percentage, it's just undeniable. Even though he is a game manager and he's not going to get you like the 6 touchdown games or anything like that, he just has guys who are going to get him yards, and he's going to complete a lot of passes. So really reliable option there as far as a fantasy quarterback. Last game of the night just finished up. The Chiefs barely beat the Jets 23-20. Patrick Mahomes did most of his damage on the ground in this one. 18 of 30, 203 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Not the best day from him against this Jets defense. Isaiah Pacheco had a phenomenal day, and I don't think he's a sell high. I think he's just good. 20 carries, 115 yards, a touchdown. Awesome day from him. Patrick Mahomes, 7 carries for 51 yards in this one. Really, again, impressive stuff on the ground from him. Sky Moore had 2 carries for 19 yards. CEH had 3 carries for 12. And Jarrett McKinnon had 3 carries for 7. Travis Kelce led the way for all receivers. He had 6 catches for 60 yards on 9 targets. Isaiah Pacheco added 3 catches for 43 yards through the air. Noah Gray had a catch for 34 yards and a touchdown. Rashee Rice had 3 catches for 32. Kadarius Toney had 2 catches for 22. Marquez Valdes-Scantling had a catch for 6. Justin Watson had a catch for 5. CEH had a catch for 1. Jarrett McKinnon didn't haul in his only target, and Sky Moore didn't haul in either of his 2 targets. So I don't think there's any Chiefs receiver worth rostering in a 10 or 12 team league. If you have Kadarius Toney, I think you're safe to drop him. If you have Rashee Rice, I think you're safe to drop him. Travis Kelce is the only receiver in this offense who should be on a roster, and he is a no-brainer play every single week. I know 12 fantasy points isn't amazing, but this is still really good tight end stuff from him. You wish there would have been some touchdowns there, but Mahomes didn't have the best day throwing the ball. I think the main thing to take away from here is that Isaiah Pacheco is legit. Don't sell him high. Keep him on your roster, and I think he's a safe play most weeks. For the Jets, Zach Wilson had his best game of the year so far. 28 of 39, 245 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. I wonder if this will just confirm that they're not going to sign another quarterback. I know they got Trevor Siemian on the practice squad, but a performance like this would keep him on the practice squad. We'll see how that develops. Breece Hall led the way for all rushers in a big way. 6 carries for 56 yards. He's still a buy low, in my opinion. Really good player there. Dalvin Cook, just the 5 carries for 16 yards. He's a safe drop. Zach Wilson, 2 carries for 14. Xavier Gibson had 2 carries for 13. And Michael Carter just had the 1 carry for 9. Allen Lazard led the way for all receivers. Surprising stuff there. 3 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown for him. Garrett Wilson, 9 catches is awesome. 60 yards, 14 targets. He's always going to get targets. I think he's got a pretty safe floor. The upside isn't as high with Zach Wilson, but I think he's a good high floor guy. Tyler Conklin had 4 catches for 58 yards. He's got a pretty solid connection with Zach Wilson there. Jeremy Ruckert had 2 catches for 26. Breece Hall had 3 for 13. Michael Carter had 2 catches for 12. Randall Cobb had 2 catches for 8. Xavier Gibson had a catch for 4. Dalvin Cook had a catch for 2, and CJ Uzomah had the catch for 1. So I don't think we should go adding Allen Lazard based on this performance. Just the 3 targets in this one. I think Garrett Wilson is really the only receiver that we should be rostering. Maybe Tyler Conklin. Tyler Conklin is an interesting tight end option as long as Zach Wilson's the quarterback. And if anybody's dropping Breece Hall because of the last few performances, please add him onto your roster. He's the best stash probably in fantasy football right now. And he's really just a stash because of how little he's been producing recently. But still, he's got all the ability in the world. If things start to open up for this team, he's going to really take advantage. And as he ramps up from his knee injury too, he's just going to get even more looks. So I think Breece Hall is a really good buy low at this stage. And that'll do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. Follow at We Are Drafting on Instagram. We got weekly rankings on there, weekly ad drop lists, weekly buy lows, sell highs. Good stuff over there. I'll see you over there. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you later.